What's up, everybody? JT Hayes, Run Pure Sports, at JT Hayes Jr. on Twitter.com. We've got a 14-game Major League Baseball slate on Friday, and so it's time for another edition of JT's Bang Bang Plays. Just 14 games because the Yankees and the White Sox get a day off, a well-deserved day off, after putting on a thrilling performance in Dyersville, Iowa, a game, the Field of Dreams game, featuring a bunch of home runs, including a walk-off by Timmy Anderson. And Andrew Heaney, 5 innings pitched, 7 earned runs, including another 3 home runs. And if you're Brian Cashman, and certainly if you're New York Yankees fans, you're getting a little bit tired of watching this guy pitch for your team, giving up the long ball. Not a particularly good first 3 starts for Andrew Heaney. And if he doesn't get it together, the Yankees are not going to be long for that American League East playoff race. Bunch of games tonight featuring playoff implications, teams getting ready, gearing up for the stretch run. And on DraftKings anyway, it looks like a bunch of pitchers at first glance are underpriced and that there's some value there. I think there's also a bunch of traps there as well. And if you're not already a member at runpuresports.com, you should get over to Run Pure Sports and join the movement. You can enter code RPSNFL15. And that gives you not just 15% off of your first month's payment, not 15% off of your first year's payment, it gives you 15% off of your lifetime prescription. Like this video, subscribe to the Run Pure Sports YouTube network, and enter code RPSNFL15 for that lifetime 15% discount. And if you subscribe to the video right now, then you'll do it in time to catch our 5:30 live free Swing for the Fences show, where we're going to break down all of the games, all of the pitching, and give you, as some of our guys like to say, the winners. On to tonight's slate. And pitching at the top, I do think there's some traps, but I think that there's a couple of guys in the top range and a couple of guys in the bottom range, and I'm going to give you just 2 of these guys that are in good spots tonight. The first is Robbie Ray and the Toronto Blue Jays. Going into Seattle, Robbie Ray on the season, a 30% strikeout rate. He's been fine recently, just okay, no ceiling games, and a lot of that has to do with his opponents. 3 of his last 4 matchups were against the Boston Red Sox. A matchup in Cleveland against the Indians sandwiched in there. Indians, of course, don't strike out too much against left-handed pitching, but this is a spot where I think Robbie Ray can go for a ceiling game. I think, for reasons we'll talk about later, that the Jays should win this game handily, putting the win bonus in play as well. So Robbie Ray is my preferred pitcher in the upper salary tier on DraftKings tonight. Going down a little bit lower, there's a bunch of options. And like I say, a lot of these guys look like they're underpriced. Michael Pineda, 5.9 at home. He gets a matchup against the Tampa Bay Rays, and the Rays have been demolishing every type of pitching, left-handed, right-handed, over the last couple of weeks. Tampa Bay's ISO against right-handed pitching, 275 the last 2 weeks. So, Michael Pineda, I don't know about that. Jesus Luzardo, home matchup against the absolutely pitiful Chicago Cubs. He looks pretty appealing, but just not that great of a pitcher. He's got a long way to go to develop. So in that 6K range, I do think there's a guy that carries about as much risk as any of these guys in that range. He pitched against this team just a week ago with mediocre results. And what we've seen over the course of this year is that these pitchers that go back-to-back, pitcher does well one game, the offense gets it together the next, and vice versa, right? Guys make adjustments, but if you're doing well in a matchup, you're not going to make those adjustments. And Mike Minor gets a home matchup where he's pitched much better this year at home than on the road against the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals over the last couple of weeks striking out 26% against left-handed pitching. They may also be without a couple of their big bats, Dylan Carlson and Tyler O'Neill. Both guys that not only I worry about in terms of power, but also in terms of speed and stolen bases. So I think this could be a deceivingly good matchup for Mike Minor in a game where the wind's going to be blowing in Kauffman Stadium, not a big home run park anyway. And it looks to be about mid-70s there, so not the excessive heat where the park can play small. So with 6'4" on DraftKings, I think Minor is a guy that I'm going to feel pretty good about taking a risk on if I need to go to that lower price range tonight. So Robbie Ray, Mike Minor gives you a little bit of a contrarian pitching mix there on DraftKings. As far as offense, I think offense is loaded tonight. There's 6 or 7 offenses that we can go to here and feel pretty good about our chances. I already talked about the Tampa Bay Rays against Michael Pineda. Don't forget they get the Minnesota Twins bullpen after that as well. But the Rays a little bit further down my list. I'm going to start with the most obvious spot on the board. If you haven't been watching Major League Baseball, or I should say if you have been watching Major League Baseball, then it's going to be no surprise that the top team on the board is the Boston Red Sox. They get a matchup against Spencer Watkins. Spencer Watkins' expected ERA of 5.30 so far on the season. That's bottom 5 on this slate. A 8.6% swinging strike rate. And then the gift that keeps on giving, the Baltimore Orioles bullpen. Worst in Major League Baseball over the last 2 weeks with a 5.74 xFIP. And this Boston team has been absolutely torrid. Scored 20 runs the other night against the Tampa Bay Rays. And it's not quite as hot, but it is humid in Boston this evening. It is going to be humid in Boston this evening. I think the Red Sox have the best chance of any of these teams to put up a bunch of runs on Spencer Watkins and the Baltimore Orioles bullpen. The 4 I would lead with, Rafael Devers at 5'8", and then remembering that Spencer Watkins get hit a bit harder from the right side, although I don't think it's going to matter all that much to this Red Sox lineup. I don't think it's going to matter all that much for much longer. I think Spencer Watkins is a guy that you're not going to see in Major League Baseball after this season. After him, I'd go with Xander Bogaerts at 5'4", J.D. Martinez at 5'1", and I'd include Jarren Duran, especially if he's in that 2-hole at just 3.2. Next spot, like I say, there's a bunch of hitting spots tonight, but one that I think is really going to go under the radar. It is currently 90 degrees in Seattle, Washington, and at game time it's going to be 85 degrees. It's about 15 to 20 degrees hotter than it is at any time, at any game in Seattle. There's an excessive heat advisory today. And the Jays get a matchup against Chris Flexen. Chris Flexen, one of my heroes from the Korean Baseball Organization, the KBO days last year. What fun that was, waking up at 3:30 in the morning and simply printing money thanks to guys like Chris Flexen. But the Major League Baseball season is a little bit different for Chris. He's pitched just fine. He's pitched actually quite well considering what people expected. Over his last 3 starts, though, some troubling trends. He's been getting lucky in an odd way in terms of not basically allowing the runners that he lets on base score. He's got a 408 batting average on balls in play against him, even in a win at Tampa Bay, and then a game that he pitched, again, pretty well against the Yankees. But that going along with that 408 BABIP against is 45% hard contact and a swinging strike rate of just 6.6%. Look, the Toronto Blue Jays over the last couple of weeks, a 205 isolated power and just a 19% strikeout rate. I think this is a matchup where the Jays can absolutely go off and demolish Chris Flexen tonight. He's had a good run. He hasn't been blown up in a while, but the heat, the hard contact, the lack of swinging strikes, just not a good matchup against this Toronto Blue Jays team. I'm going to stick mostly, actually all, of the right-handed hitters here. And keep in mind, Bo Bichette may be out of the lineup again. He's dealing with a little bit of an injury, as is Corey Dickerson. Doesn't matter. I don't really want Corey Dickerson in my lineups if he's in the lineup. I'll go with George Springer leading off at 5.4. Vladdy, can't leave him out of this stack. He's expensive at 6.2, but I think he's going to be worth it tonight. Marcus Semien at 5.0, and then Teoscar Hernandez at 4.8. They get a bullpen that's pitching a little bit over its head after Flexen as well. I expect the Jays to go pretty much off tonight, is my expectation here. A couple of other teams, honorable mention. I've talked about this situation where a team faces a pitcher, the pitcher does well, and then you can expect the almost opposite, or at least a decrease. And it's been particularly true for rookies. It's been true for everyone. You need to look no further than Yu Darvish last night. Dominates the Diamondbacks just a couple of weeks ago. And then last night, I think he didn't even make it out of the 3rd inning when Diamondbacks scored 12 runs against the Padres. I think it's going to be much of the same in terms of the pattern here for Josiah Gray. I'm a believer long-term on the talent of Josiah Gray, but that environment in Washington tonight, Washington, one of the hottest games in Major League Baseball, going to be hot almost approaching 90 degrees at game time, and it's going to be humid. I've got it just behind Seattle in terms of a weather factor. And I think the Braves, after getting smashed at home yesterday by the Cincinnati Reds, are going to get right back on track against Josiah Gray and the Washington bullpen, which over the last 2 weeks has been the second worst bullpen in Major League Baseball. The only one worse, of course, the Baltimore Orioles bullpen that we talked about earlier. Washington's bullpen also a little bit taxed. It seems like they played doubleheaders every day this week in New York with the weird weather up there. Wasn't quite that bad, but they did play basically two full games yesterday. Finished a suspended game and then played a full game. One of, I think it might have been exactly the day before that. So look for the Braves to get right here in the first game in Washington. And then Patrick Sandoval has been pretty good this year, but the Houston Astros are demolishing left-handed pitching over the last couple of weeks. 267 ISO, a 146 weighted runs creation plus for the Astros. And then they get a mediocre bullpen after Sandoval in Los Angeles. They are further down on my list, but I would not, if you're trying to get to the top of tournaments, I would not ignore the Houston Astros tonight. That does it for JT's Bang Bang Plays. Once again, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube Run Pure Sports Network. We'll have that free show, Swing for the Fences, at 5:30. I'll be on it. We'll have a slate strategy. We'll have pours. Our Discord is already hopping. It goes 24/7. And if you're not in there, you should be. RPS NFL 15. 15% off of your lifetime subscription at Run Pure Sports. And as they say in the streets down south, corre puro.